Yo, what if the Prince of All Saiyans crashed the biggest war in Shinobi history? Grab your snacks, cause this verse is about to get completely cooked.
The sky above the land of frost didn't just break, it completely shattered. A cosmic anomaly violently tearing through the very fabric of their fragile reality. The Shinobi forces froze in absolute terror. This wasn't chakra or a jutsu. This was an entirely alien phenomenon, threatening to consume the battlefield. Legends and gods meant nothing now. Every ninja present felt a suffocating pressure that made their life force feel utterly insignificant. Before their minds could even process the danger, a catastrophic force was already descending right upon their heads with unstoppable momentum. Falling like a golden meteor from the heavens, an alien prince arrives. This world had absolutely no idea what was about to hit them. He wasn't falling out of control. He was merely calculating the exact moment to establish his absolute dominance over this new territory. A split second of terrifying silence gripped the battlefield, the calm before the most violent storm in history. The impact didn't just shake the ground. It violently rewrote the geography. The earth screamed in agony beneath his boots. An unstoppable kinetic shockwave obliterated everything in its path, treating the grand Shinobi battlefield like a sandbox being swept away. Their strongest defensive barriers shattered instantly. In the face of pure, raw biological power, their chakra arts were rendered completely useless. Even the architects of the Moon's Eye plan were forced to brace themselves, their legendary visual prowess struggling to comprehend the anomaly. For the first time in millennia, the ultimate weapon of the ninja world, the Ten Tails, felt an instinctual surge of territorial threat. As the apocalyptic dust began to settle, a terrifying silence reclaimed the battlefield, leaving only the devastating aftermath of his arrival. A crater the size of a city now scarred the earth, a permanent monument to a physical strength that defied their reality. Deep within the smoldering abyss where no normal human could possibly survive, a lone silhouette emerged completely unscathed, unfazed and untouched. The Prince of All Saiyans merely treated an earth-shattering atmospheric drop like a light morning stretch. Every single step carried the weight of a warrior race that conquered galaxies, crushing the very earth beneath his heel. To the Shinobi, it was a cataclysm. To him, it was barely enough to ruin the pristine condition of his royal armor.
Where the hell did Kakarot's blast send me? The gravity here is an absolute joke. Feels like walking on paper.
A warrior never acts blindly. He immediately sought to quantify the strength of whatever pathetic resistance this new planet had to offer. Through the lens of Saiyan technology, the legendary ninja armies were reduced to nothing more than insignificant single-digit numbers. But then the system screamed. A colossal, anomalous mass of energy violently triggered the sensors, completely dwarfing the insect-like armies. His Saiyan instincts flared. Finally, something in this pathetic wasteland actually possessed a pulse worth his royal attention. There it stood, the Ten Tails, a creature worshipped as a god, radiating an ocean of power. Yet to Vegeta, it looked utterly grotesque. He analyzed its core. It wasn't pure life force. It was a muddy, chaotic sludge of stolen natural energy, a biological mess. He analyzed its core. It wasn't pure life force. It was a muddy, chaotic sludge of stolen natural energy, a biological mess. The prince felt deeply insulted. To think this unrefined, parasitic mutation was considered the pinnacle of power in this universe. The Saiyan technology couldn't handle the erratic, muddy fluctuations of the beast's chakra, fracturing under the chaotic data. He didn't need a machine to measure garbage. He threw away the useless tech, relying purely on his own predatory instincts. Driven by pure arrogance, he decided not to destroy it immediately, but to rip that power away just to prove a point.
So that ugly, chaotic pile of meat is what you clowns call a god. Let me show you what absolute power really looks like.
The two architects of war didn't just see a threat. They saw an error that needed to be erased from their vision. The beast began to weave its ultimate destruction, a localized supernova designed to vaporize everything within a 5-mile radius.
End this farce, Obito. Obliterate the intruder.
Space itself seemed to buckle under the sheer density of the concentrated energy, a weapon capable of leveling mountain ranges. The Allied forces watched in frozen horror as the sky turned a sickening shade of crimson. Most would flee, most would pray. Vegeta just smirked, already analyzing the trajectory of the incoming disaster. With a thunderous roar, the cataclysm was unleashed, screaming towards the ground to erase the Saiyan prince from existence. It was pure, distilled destruction, flying true and straight to claim its mark. 1 second, just 1 second separated the world from total oblivion. He didn't raise a shield. He didn't dodge. He simply lifted a hand, treating a continent buster like a piece of falling trash. Absolute stillness. The unstoppable force had met an immovable object, and the result was humiliation. He pushed back, not with force, but with pure, unadulterated superiority.
That's all? This pathetic energy ball isn't even worth a warm-up.
Returned to sender. With a casual flick, he transformed their ultimate weapon into a mere afterthought. It soared higher, leaving the Shinobi world behind, headed for a grave in the cold void of space. A silent spectacle. The ultimate power of the Ten Tails, extinguished in the vacuum of space without harming a single blade of grass. For the first time, the mask of the mastermind slipped. Fear, cold and absolute, gripped his heart.
Bro, that was disrespectful. He didn't even use 2 hands. That's just savage.
Time became irrelevant. He didn't travel. He just arrived. He stood on the crown of their god, looking down at the architects of their reality as if they were nothing.
You two are the ones playing house with this overgrown vegetable? How pathetic.
Madara struck with the fury of a legend, but Vegeta didn't even need to touch the blade to dodge it. He halted the legendary Susanoo with a single finger. The power dynamic wasn't just shifted, it was erased. The beast, a creature born of ancient hate, sensed an apex predator in its midst and began to thrash in terror. Desperation fueled the shinobi's strike. But against a Saiyan, desperation is just a polite word for failure. He played with them. 2 of the strongest men in history, reduced to toys in the hands of the prince. The air grew heavy, static, and deadly. The real match was about to begin, and it was already over.
My turn. Try not to die before the fun starts.
The legend of the Ninja War died the moment he stepped foot on that beast. A new, darker era had just begun. The Prince of Science does not ask for permission. He takes what he wants, and he leaves only dust in his wake. He moved faster than perception. To the Uchiha, the prince wasn't a threat. He was a natural disaster that had finally arrived. With one strike, he severed the connection, freezing the chakra flow like a heart stopping in mid-beat. Total helplessness. The mastermind who controlled the fate of nations was suddenly reduced to a statue by a single touch.
Don't look so surprised. Your power is just a toy to me.
He didn't just fight the beast. He performed surgery, tearing through the defenses of their god without a second thought. A god's scream tore across the land, but the Saiyan didn't flinch. He was hunting for the core. Like cutting through paper, he bypassed the divine armor, digging deep into the entity's twisted, corrupted heart. He found it, the source of their madness, a core of stolen life and broken dreams pulsing in his palm. It shivered in his grasp, a trapped animal realizing that for the first time its power was meaningless. The legend who stared down death was now crumbling, watching his centuries of planning being held by a visitor.
Let's see what happens when true power meets this trash.
He wasn't afraid of the corruption. He was hungry to conquer it, to bend the beast's chaotic will to his own. The corruption didn't consume him. It begged to be accepted into his royal bloodline. A toxic offering of stolen life. Power flooded his senses. The raw, unfiltered anger of a million souls, now under his complete command. He was no longer just a Saiyan. He was becoming the apex of two worlds, a fusion of divinity and chaos. The universe protested his existence. Reality itself began to buckle as the Saiyan prince forced the godhood into his own shape. His form shifted. Saiyan blood reacted to the chakra, creating a new, terrifying hybrid that defied every law of existence. He was a storm of raw potential, a Saiyan prince wearing the skin of a beast that once ruled the ninja world. The land couldn't bear the weight of his transformation. It broke, shattered by the sheer presence of a power it couldn't comprehend. A living eclipse. He stood at the center of a dying battlefield, the new god of a world that didn't want him.
Now, let's see if this power is actually worth the effort.
The war was over, not won by strategy or by seal, but ended by the simple arrival of an apex predator. Every breath he took seemed to drain the atmosphere of its energy, condensing it into his own aura. The beast that defined an era had been hollowed out, consumed by the prince as easily as a stray meal. He felt the power humming in his veins. It wasn't just chakra. It was a new Saiyan evolved reality. Standing above the clouds, he looked down at their world, a king surveying a kingdom he had already conquered. This wasn't the end. It was merely the first test. And the universe wasn't ready for what he would do next. Silence had returned, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a grave. A new god walked this earth, and the ninja world would never know peace again. This was his new throne, built upon the ashes of their greatest weapon.
Oh snap! Juubi Vegeta! The whole verse is cooked. Things are about to get absolutely insane.
Silence. The physical world vanished as he dove deep, seeking the root of the beast's corrupted power. He wasn't alone. The beast's consciousness was already waiting, coiled in the dark corners of his subconscious. It lunged, not with fangs, but with the raw weight of 1,000 years of pure distilled hatred.
That's the best you've got? You think fear works on me?
It unleashed a psychic storm, trying to shatter his sanity and drown his ego in an ocean of despair. It clawed at his memories, digging for the pain, trying to turn his own past into a weapon. It thought it could break him with the ghosts of his people. It didn't realize those ghosts only fueled his rage. It whispered promises of power if he just surrendered, if he just let go of the burden of his royal pride. But the prince wasn't looking for power from the beast. He was looking to dominate the beast. The darkness realized its mistake. It had invited a conqueror into its house of horrors. It threw everything it had at him, a desperate assault to save itself from being utterly overwritten. He didn't bend. He didn't break. He stood as the pillar upon which his entire empire was built.
You think you can control me? I've been controlled by masters. You're just a parasite.
A scar from a past life, now a badge of the ultimate defiance he had mastered long ago. He pushed his pride outward, turning his inner world into a battlefield where only he could stand. The hatred couldn't handle the sheer purity of his will. It was dissolving, losing its shape in the face of his ambition. The creature that once threatened to reshape the world was now nothing more than a servant at his feet.
Know your place. You belong to me now.
The battle was over. The prince hadn't just won the fight. He had completely conquered the beast's very essence. Total control. Every ounce of the beast's chaotic power was now a tool for his own singular purpose. He opened his eyes, the mindscape gone, but the power, the absolute devastating power, was still firmly in his grip. He was back, but something about him was different. The pride, the power, it was all sharper. He stood as the master of a god. The ninja world had no idea that they had just witnessed the impossible. It was time to show them what a real king does with a toy like this. They stood paralyzed, the weight of his presence crushing their spirit, their belief, and their world. He had the power of the beast. Now he just had to decide who was worth destroying first. He didn't need to conquer their world. He just needed to remind them who owned the reality they lived in. With one flick, he could erase the entire map, but he was just getting started. The war was over, but the prince was just beginning his reign. He had conquered the beast. Now, the rest of the world would have to reckon with his pride. He stood amidst the ruin, ready to test this stolen power, expecting a weapon of divine quality. It didn't flow like Kiki. It oozed, a heavy, sluggish current of stolen chakra demanding control. He fused his royal energy with the beast's chaotic essence, forging a bomb that should have shattered the world. But something wasn't right. It felt heavy, like trying to run through a swamp in armor.
There's a delay? Why is it hesitating?
A millisecond of hesitation. In his world, that was the difference between victory and being vaporized. He scrutinized the flow, searching for the source of this infuriating drag. The analysis confirmed his suspicion. The two energies were incompatible, creating a lethal friction inside his own body. It was like pouring sludge into a precision engine. It slowed everything down, numbing his reflexes. He had thought he was wielding a god, but he was actually carrying a disease. It clung to him, trying to fuse with his very DNA. A parasitic leech, hoping to hitch a ride on a Saiyan. To maintain this form, he had to dedicate a fraction of his focus just to keep the sludge from drowning his own core. It wasn't power. It was a chore. An inefficient, messy, low-tier system for weaklings.
Useless. This isn't strength, it's a glorified energy leech.
The Saiyan doesn't need to borrow power. He earns it. He grinds for it. He destroys for it. He rejected the gift. The trade-off was too high, the cost too heavy, and the reward utterly pathetic. He purged it. Every ounce of the beast was forced out. A toxic rejection of inferior biology. It screamed, terrified of being alone again, but it had no place in the heart of a king. Clean, pure, exactly as it should be. A flick of the wrist. That was all it took to erase their centuries-long ambition. No trace left, just the empty, pathetic truth of what they thought was power. He didn't care about their war. He didn't care about their pain. He only cared about the truth of his own strength.
Keep your toys, ninja. I don't need garbage to be a god.
He ascended, leaving the broken shell of their god behind, a testament to the fact that some things just aren't worth the trouble. He was never a hero. He was never a villain. He was just the prince, and he was bored of this game.
What a waste of time.
The Saiyan way is simple. If it doesn't make you stronger, get rid of it. He left behind a world that had tried to control a storm, only to be leveled by the breeze. The game had changed, the pieces were broken, and the prince was just getting started. He had shown them the truth. Now, they were on their own. The prince refused the infection. He felt the parasite trying to rewrite his Saiyan biology, and his rage erupted. A Saiyan doesn't merge with filth. He burns it away until nothing but his own royal pride remains. Every fiber of his being rebelled against the corruption, pushing it back into the depths of his own palm. He gathered the infection into a singular point, preparing to excise the weakness from his system forever. It fought back, clawing at his flesh, but the Saiyan prince was relentless in his pursuit of purity.
Get off me, you pathetic leech!
He ripped it out, a piece of the divine, now stripped of its host and laid bare before the universe. It was fragile now. Without a host, it was just a heap of stolen, confused power. He squeezed. The divine artifact cracked, shattered, and ceased to be. Dust to dust. The god had been reduced to ashes by the touch of a true warrior. He was free, and he was not going to leave any trace of this parasitic mistake behind. A clean slate. He didn't just want to destroy the core. He wanted to wipe the map of its existence.
Big Bang attack! Erase everything!
It didn't just explode. It consumed every trace, every memory, every fragment of the beast was vaporized. Total erasure. The battlefield was clean, and the prince was finally satisfied with the results. The war was over. He had proven his point. Now it was time to leave this pathetic reality. A simple call, a way home. He didn't belong in a world of ninjas and chakras.
Bulma, get the transport ready. I'm coming home.
The escape was ready, a ride back to a universe that understood the true meaning of power. He left them in silence. No lectures, no lessons, just the empty space where their god used to be. Their world survived because he deemed it not worth the effort of complete destruction. The Saiyan was gone, leaving behind only the quiet, haunted fields where legends once fell. He came, he fought, and he left. And the world was forever changed by his simple, arrogant presence. The verdict was clear. Strength doesn't come from gods. It comes from within.
Thank you guys so much for watching till the end. Y'all are absolute legends. I'll catch you guys in the next dimension. Peace out.